Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Mannino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Mannino, and welcome to Driven, Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you and the tips and tricks and how they got to where they're at today. And don't forget to like, subscribe. I keep forgetting to tell everybody about that. So like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out, helps get content out. We got Warren Mainard here, and he's with Impact Players. How you doing, Warren?
I'm doing great. It's awesome to be on this podcast with you, Michael.
I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. I really do appreciate it. So do me a favor, tell everybody we're talking off camera, and I always do that. I get too in depth to the off camera part, and I really need to share this with the viewers. Do me a quick favor. Tell everybody about what you do and what you're looking for with your group, Impact Players.
Yeah, absolutely. So Impact Players is an organization for men. And one of the things we like to say, I got it on my sweatshirt here, is every man needs a band of brothers. And we just really feel like that there is a problem in our country right now, and that is isolation among men. Men are going through stuff. They're navigating things that are coming at them 100 miles per hour. And we work a lot with men who are exactly like the title of your show, driven men. And when men are driving hard in their careers, oftentimes they find themselves winning at work and losing at home. And so what we're really all about is inspiring men to be great husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most. And we do that by bringing men together for larger monthly gatherings, smaller weekly community groups, and then leadership trainings throughout the year. And we're starting new chapters in different parts of the country, including where I live here in the Charleston, Summerville, South Carolina area.
Nice. I heard you thinking about Columbia too, and that's close to where I live. So we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Absolutely.
So, in your industry, what sets you apart? What do I understand the attack on masculinity. I call it the attack on masculinity. Yeah. I really do. And if the way I can describe it is Family Guy, All in the Family. They make the husbands look like buffoons.
Yeah.
Making them inferior. I understand because it's kind of comical, we'll say. Mm. But it really doesn't do a lot for men's self-esteem.
Right. Well, when you think about it, like if your goal was to destroy a culture or destroy a nation, well, what do you want to do? You want to take out the children, you want to take out the wives, and the way that you do that is you take out the man. You eliminate his moral authority leadership in the home.
His
you
masculinity.
Take away his leadership. You emasculate him. You tell him that he's foolish and can't be trusted. And you see that so clearly in our culture today. And so we're trying to come in and we're just trying to punch that idea over and over again is no, you are called to be a leader. We say be a thermostat, not a thermometer. You're called to set the temperature in your home, and you're called to be the spiritual rock in your family that's bringing your family to the Lord and leading spiritually. And most men, that is like something that they are not prepared for when they get married, when they have kids. And we're just trying to say, hey, we're here to help you become that kind of man for your family, because that's what our culture needs. That's what our families and wives need.
Oh, I agree with you 1,000%. You ever hear that Paul Harvey in 1965 when I was born?
Yeah.
And it's and at the end of he talks about how to destroy the family. I would attack the family. I'd make the man look like the buffoon. I'd make women think that being in the house is oppression. And I mean, everything he said in 1965 is true today. Absolutely true today.
He 100% just
nailed it.
He pulled back the curtain. He's like, this is the game plan. This is I mean, you could call it Marxist, you could call it, communist, whatever, but it is purely, the enemy of God.
Spiritual
It's,
warfare.
it's spiritual
It's
warfare.
spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
And he talked about it in 1965, how they're going to do it.
Mhm.
Oh, you're 100%
Yeah.
right. I agree with you 1,000%, 1,000%. Spiritual
Yeah.
warfare, attack the family. You got to hit that. You got to hit the husband first because he's the leader.
And
And
again, going back to the title of this, podcast, Driven, it's like, I think all men really want to be successful. They want to accomplish great things in their lives. They want to achieve. And business, like, a lot of us are former athletes that then go into some sort of a career, and we take that same competitive scorekeeping
hmm
from our
hmm
sports days. I played collegiate
hmm
tennis. I know you're big time into martial arts, but we take that competitive scorekeeping into our lives and we see how we can keep score in business. We're like, okay, more sales, more money, what more career accomplishments. It's harder to do that in our families, in our marriages, in our spiritual walk. And so we kind of say, okay, well, I know how I can win in career. I don't know how I can win in these other areas, and so we kind of lose track of that. And we really just think that, hey, it is possible to learn how to become successful as a husband, as a father, as a man, as a leader in your home, and not have it compromise what you're trying to do in your career as well.
Exactly. The work-life balance, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that
Well,
may,
here's
that the work-life balance, I think, to me, honestly, is a little bit of a mirage. It's not about balance. You're never going to be, quote, balanced in this life. What really matters is your priorities. What do you value? And are you living according to your values? Are you living according to your priorities? And at different seasons of life, those priorities are going to kind of shape and direct how you spend your time. And so I love playing tennis. I mentioned just a minute ago, I play college tennis. But man, when I had young kids and I was in the middle of getting, my ministry career started, I hardly touched my tennis racket.
Mhm.
I went like 10 years without hardly playing at all. Now my kids are grown. I'm in a different stage of life and career. And now, I mean, I'm going to play 2 or 3 times this week. And that's,
nice.
but again, it's about saying, okay, I know what my priorities are about, and I'm going to let my priorities and values shape how I live my life as opposed to, kind of letting the pressures of trying to make everybody happy dictate how I, live my life instead.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like when I was in the mix, and here's something that comes to you from the future. So my son just gave me a grandson, and I'm looking at how much he's doing at work and how much he's playing with the kid. I'm like, that was a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did a
Wow.
lot. We did a lot raising him.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it's great that you've got a son who's got a son now, and he's kind of reminding you of what that journey was like for you. And hopefully it was one that is not filled with too many regrets, but a lot of, gratefulness for the opportunity to invest that season into his life.
Oh, me and my son have one of the best relationships a father and son could have, and
Mm,
he's super successful. I mean, I would like to say I knocked it out of the park, but God knocked it out of the park. I
yeah,
just watched.
that's awesome.
So, if someone wants to get better at what you're doing, what tips and tricks and suggestions would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, some of these things are so universally true. I'm sure a lot of your, other podcast guests have mentioned some of these things, but if you don't know what your target is,
Mm,
if you're not aiming at something, then you're never going to get anywhere with that.
You're going to miss every time.
and you're going to miss every time, or you'll hit it every once in a while, but you won't understand why, and you'll never be able to repeat it again. And so I think, again, going back to what I was saying a little while ago, it's like you need to know why God put you on this earth. What is your purpose? What is your calling? What is the goal? And then what are the specific goals that you want to pursue that align with that calling and that purpose that God has given to you? And so I was just sharing with a group of men. We do a study in one of our cohorts called Chiseled, and it's really about how God uses the trials and the pain and the sufferings that we go through to chisel us into the men that He wants us to be. And so, sometimes achieving our goals only comes through learning from our failures and allowing those to shape us and direct us. But what I was saying to those guys this morning, I think, is really important for maybe some of the listeners of this podcast. I recommend an exercise where I encourage men to write their own eulogies. And I will say, like, okay, write your eulogy from the perspective of your wife. Write it from the
Ooh,
perspective of your daughter, your son, the friends that know you most closely, your church, and really think specifically about when I die, what would I want people to say about me, to remember about the man that I am, the husband, the father. And I did that exercise probably about 9 years ago. And uh, it's amazing how often I think about those things where I'm facing a decision about what do I want to invest in this next season of my life into? And I go back to what do I want people to say at my funeral? And I don't know if that's prideful or not, but for me, it kind of gives me a perspective of, what's going to last, what's gonna have the greatest impact in my life and in the lives of those around me. And I like to say that it's my goal to live in such a way that the people who know me best respect me the most. It's easy to
that's a good
try
point.
to live to please for the social media crowd and the distant admirers, but I really don't care about those people anymore. All I really care about is what do the people that know me the best think about me as a man and as a husband, father, etc.
Yeah, I like that. You remind me of this one conversation I had with my aunt. She goes, "What's the meaning of life?" I go, "It's easy." She looked at me and tilted her head. I go, "What's up?" And she looked at me like I was crazy, which I kind of am a little bit. I said, "It's all the hats you wear." And she looked at me and just kind of backed up a little bit. I said, "I'm a husband. That's a hat. I'm a father. That's a hat. I'm a brother. And I'm a business owner. I'm an
Mhm.
employee. I work for clients. I wear those hats. I'm an employer, employee, and all the hats I wear. I just want to honor God in every one of them." She just
Mm,
sort of looked at me and goes, "Yeah, that's pretty much it." I'm like, "Oh."
yeah,
I didn't think the explanation was that hard, but she kind of the look on her face after I was done was priceless.
that's great. Yeah,
So
it's like that scene. Do you remember the movie City Slickers where Billy Crystal's character asks the old
yeah, I
cowboy
love Billy
Curly. He
Crystal
goes,
in that one.
he goes he goes, "What's the secret to life?" And he goes, "Is this?" And he goes, "What? Your finger?" And he goes, "No, one thing." And he goes, "Well, what's the one thing?" And he says, "That's what you've got to figure out."
Right.
And for me, I know what that one thing is. It is to live for the glory of God and to live my life in such a way that the people that know me the best respect me the most. And if I can just use that funnel to, that filter to sort out all the other garbage and distractions and, things that can make me feel like I'm running like a hamster on a wheel and go, no, I need to do things that are going to move the needle in the most important areas of my life.
Exactly. I agree with you 1000%. So do me a favor, tell us one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your career.
Mm. Well, that's it. That's a good segue because, I just used that illustration of the hamster on the wheel.
Yeah.
And, believe it or not, Michael, but even people who dedicate their lives to God and church and ministry can still find themselves in a bit of their own Christian rat race, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense. And
It does, but you're gonna have to extrapolate on that a little bit.
yeah, and so, I'll just share that I've been in ministry now for over 30 years. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. And over the years, I've always been, quote, successful in every ministry that I've been able to lead. I was a youth pastor for 17 years in three different churches. And then in 2012, our family moved from the South Carolina area to Seattle, Washington to start a church.
Ooh.
And if you know anything about Seattle, Seattle is the least churched city in America. It is a dark place spiritually, and that's not to say that there's not some wonderful Christians out there. There are, but they are few and far between. And so when we moved out there to plant the church, I went out there with a lot of confidence that I had been successful in every other place I had been. I will be successful out here. I was driven to the max. And we did it for 8 years. It was the hardest ministry that I had ever planted and started and led. It took a lot out of us, and you know there was a season where we were experiencing kind of a family breakdown within our family. My wife was really struggling. My kids were really struggling. I was falling apart emotionally and psychologically. And so, um, there was a revelation that I had that, and I hope that maybe there's someone on this podcast that might take from my story and save themselves some pain. But God kind of taught me a really important lesson, and it's simply this, that it doesn't matter how fast or how hard I can run if I'm dragging the people I love behind me. Okay? So there are probably some guys, maybe even some women on this podcast that they're like, man, I got all the gas in the tank that I need. I got new tires, and I can just drive all day, all night until the cows come home. And that might be true. That they may have just unlimited energy and unlimited, drive. But the question is, do the people that you love, can they keep up with you? Because if you're dragging them behind and they're getting beat up and bruised and torn apart because of your drive, then what have you accomplished? Jesus said, what good does it do a man if he gains the whole world and yet forfeits his soul? And you could probably change that word from soul to family, marriage, relationships, faith, whatever you want to put in there. If you're driving so hard that you're losing the things that you most highly value, what have you accomplished?
Right. Somewhat of a train wreck at one point.
That's usually where it ends up, right?
Yep.
Is at some point the levees break and the dam bursts open, and all of a sudden men have a total wipeout in their lives, and they go, I don't know what happened. And it's like, well, you know yeah, you had the strength and the power and the endurance to keep going, but your soul didn't, or your faith didn't, or your relationships didn't, or your finances did, whatever it is. And so something eventually, there's always a reckoning. And that's,
Mhm.
what are you going to do when that reckoning comes for you?
Face it head on. That's what I do. The I know what you're trying to say is like being a man's tough. I don't think people really understand how tough it actually
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Women can't wrap their brain around it. And you have the family, which is your why. This is why I do all the hard work, right?
Mm.
And you got to make sure that your work's taken care of to take care of the family. But sometimes you get good at your work, and then the work takes you away from the family. So that's the yin and yang, I call it, martial arts of the battle.
Mm.
We'll
Yeah.
call it.
Right. Because we're seeing, like, when you look at men today,
Mhm.
Michael, I'm sure you see this all the time, but it's like there are two ruts that men can fall into. One is apathy. And, so you see these guys that, you know, they won't leave their basement. They're playing video games all the time. They're not moving their career forward. They're afraid to, call a woman and ask her out for a date because, that it's just easier.
Whatever.
It's just
Fear,
easier to look at porn and play video
fear,
games. So that's
fear,
that's
fear.
yeah, that's one rut. But there is another rut, and that is the guy that is so ambitious that um, he's just 100% engulfed in accomplishment. And, that can be equally dangerous in the long run for men if they don't find that middle path, which is really, what we would call as Christians the gospel, which is it's living by grace through faith in Christ alone
There
and
you go.
finding your identity and your self-worth in him and walking at the pace, running at the pace that God has called you to run at. And that's a different kind of lifestyle that a lot of men take a while to find that narrow path that Jesus describes.
I agree wholeheartedly. Sounds like things are going pretty well for you. And thinking about the future, have you ever? So we like to share people's accomplishments. Have you ever created passive income, and how did you do it?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I've got um, this is one of the studies that I mentioned for impact players. This is like about an 80-page workbook that guys can go through in a group with other men, and it helps them grow as husbands and fathers. We've got about 20 different studies like that. 13,
Nice.
13 of them are now available on Amazon. Um, so right now we're trying to kind of build somewhat of a passive income for the ministry. And so we're hoping that, churches and individuals that are just looking for men's Bible studies or men's group studies will start buying those workbooks. And it will help fund the ministry that we lead. So we're not just solely depending on donations. But candidly, Michael, kind of on my next phase of life career is to actually take some of these studies that are workbooks and turn them into standalone books and put those on a more of a personal Amazon page, sell those individually, and hopefully begin to create some passive income for
Perfect.
my family.
Perfect.
So it's kind of in the works, and I do some other things on the side and teach tennis lessons and some things like that. But just beginning to get into that world of quote passive income.
Yeah, that's you nailed it. I would assume that your chiseled is kind
Mhm.
of like Dave Ramsey's financial peace.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
So
good
that we did
comparison.
that at our church, and it worked out fantastic. We had a small group, we had 10 people, and it really was eye opener because it was everything I did and financially, and everybody else didn't. It's like I
Yeah.
felt like I was alone on an island. So I'd love to see that chiseled part because that's, hopefully I'm doing the right things there too. Listen, Warren, I
Sure.
can't thank you enough for your time here and wrapping up the interview. What exciting plans you got for the next 6 to 12 months? What do you got going?
Yeah, so on a, personal level, excited to, help my daughter move into her first house. She just moved up to Greenville
Nice.
and she's starting her career out up there. My son's coming home from college and so excited to be able to get to spend more time with him over the summer. My wife and I are looking forward to doing some traveling. But as far as the ministry goes, as I mentioned, Impact Players is growing nationwide. We started in Seattle, Washington, and it was a local ministry for about 18 years. Only the last year and a half have we been focused on nationwide expansion. And so we've been able to grow into 5 states and 11 cities
Nice.
across the country over the last 18 months. And just looking for, new opportunities to start new chapters and cohorts across the country. And we've got a number of initiatives that we're really excited about. One that maybe some of your impact men or some of your driven men might be interested in is we're getting ready to roll out a summer program called Impact Hard. So if you're familiar with CrossFit or P90X or 75 Hard, we're kind of creating our own version of that where men can join a community across the country of guys who are all taking 75 days to focus on improving their physical health, their spiritual well-being, their relational well-being, and they'll do like a weekly check-in, get some training from leaders across the country, be able to utilize our new app, the Win the Day app, where men
Mhm.
kind of learn how to really track how they're doing in their goals each day. And so we're excited about that. We'll be rolling that out. So if anybody's interested in that, you can go to our website impactplayers.org, and we'll be releasing those details soon. But yeah, there's some cool stuff in the works that we're really excited about.
So you just stole my thunder. So talking about segues, if anybody would like to get in contact with you, how would you do that? How would they do that?
Yeah, so impactplayers.org is our website. That's always a great way to find out more. The social media that I kind of do my most public engagement with is through LinkedIn. So just find me on LinkedIn, Warren Mainard, Mainard. I'm actually the only Warren Mainard in the United States. So
Nice.
you'll find me. But yeah, hit me up. I'd love to connect. If anybody's going to be, yeah, I was going to talk about our thing on Friday, but this may not come out until after that. But
And I was go ahead and mention it, but because this people might see it
yeah,
after we have the event, and then there'll be more coming up.
well, I'll just say that, hey, if you're in the South Carolina region, take a look at where we're located. We've got a chapter in the Charleston, Summerville area. We've got a chapter in Florence, South Carolina. We're looking to start one in Columbia. We're also talking to folks in Myrtle Beach and Georgetown, South Carolina, hoping to get a connection going in Greenville. So if those are areas that you live and you'd like to see something like what Michael and I have been talking about today in your community, then hit me up. I'd love to share more with you on a one-on-one basis.
All right, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time here, and we do appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show, and don't for everybody else, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. It helps out bring more content through the years. Appreciate it, and Warren, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Michael. This was great.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.